If you have been thinking about making a change in your life or your business, but you've been putting it off until the right time, then I want you to watch this entire video until the end, because I'm going to walk you through something that is 2 times more powerful and effective than goal setting when it comes to making change. And it's something that not a lot of people are talking about. Okay. Because first of all, like what a lot of people are talking about is like the common things when it comes to making changes in your life or your business: goal setting, vision, clarity, systems, focusing on your why, focusing on your kids, focusing on your wife, focusing on your motivation. I talk about all those things all the time, but I want to tell you a story about how I kind of stumbled across this. And this was before I had actually started my business. Around 6 or 7 years ago, I was working a corporate job, but I was thinking about starting a podcast, thinking about creating content, thinking about doing my own thing. But I was kind of stuck by a lot of fear, a lot of negativity, self-doubt. And I started researching like how to work through it. And I came across a TED Talk by Tim Ferriss where he talks about the concept of fear setting. And he took me through the fear setting process, and I watched that video and I journaled on it. And if you're not familiar with that process, basically the whole concept is, instead of like focusing on your goals, you focus on your fears. And what you do is you go through kind of like a 3-phase process where first you list out your fears. Like, what are the things that you're actually afraid of? Then you ask yourself, how do I prevent it from happening? And if it does happen, how do I recover from it? That's the first part. And that's where most people stay stuck. That's where I was at. I was just thinking about the fears. But then what you do in the second part is you ask yourself, like, what are all the benefits of this next step? So I listed out what were all the benefits of me starting a podcast. And then you come up with a list of as many of those. And once you do that, it starts to kind of neutralize some of that fear. But then there's a third part, which was the thing that really got me to shift and really got me to decide that I was going to change. And it's called the cost of inaction. And so what you do in that exercise is you list out, what are you going to miss out on 6 months from now, 1 year from now, or 3 years from now if you don't make that change? So for me, I listed out, where would I be 6 months from then, 1 year from then, and 3 years from then if I didn't start my podcast? What would I miss out on emotionally? What would I miss out on physically? What would I miss out on financially? And what would I actually lose? And it was when, in that moment when I journaled and I realized that 3 years from now, if I didn't start my podcast, I would be embarrassed that I didn't start it because of being afraid. And I felt like I would lose money. I would lose potential partnerships. I would lose a lot of self-trust and confidence. That was the reason why. And it was honestly like in that moment, once I went through that exercise, that I just decided I was going to do it and I was going to go for it. That podcast led to people reaching out to me for coaching. Those reach outs started to me starting a coaching business, and it ultimately led to me starting Driven Dadpreneur, which is what I do now. And the thing that really got me to change wasn't the vision, wasn't the goal setting, wasn't the why, wasn't any of that. It was the decision to get started because of the cost of inaction. And so that's why, if you are in a place where you're thinking about making a change or thinking about implementing something in your business or in your life, but you haven't made that full decision yet, the cost of inaction could be one of the most powerful things that you need to calculate in order to make that decision to change. And I've had that personal story that made me realize it, but there's a lot of science that backs this up. And there's a psychologist whose name is Daniel Kahneman. He wrote a book called Thinking Fast and Slow, where he shares this concept and he shares some of the studies around what they found. And what they found is that when they studied humans in different games and even just in different coin flips, that losing was 2 times as painful as winning. And when they were playing different coin flip games, the feeling of losing $200 was equivalent to winning 100. So the concept of loss aversion can actually be a motivating force for you to make a change if you go through it in the right way. And I've seen this in my personal life. I've seen this in the science, and I've also seen it in the guys that I coach in my Driven Dadpreneur Accelerator program. When I talk to I've worked with over 80, 100 CEOs and business owners at this point. And the ones that come in on the sales call or on our initial call or in the DMs, and they make the realization that I can't keep going like this, and I don't want to be in this exact place 6 months from now, 1 year from now, or a couple of years from now. Those are the guys that I know that are committed, that are going to get great results. And it's really just a series of questions that you need to ask yourself in order to realize, what is it costing you to stay where you're at? And like, really what you want to start to do is start to ask yourself, like, what is my cost of inaction? And that word cost is an actual cost. Like, what is it costing you? Yes, in terms of business revenue, but as dads, as husbands, there's other costs as well, in terms of your energy, in terms of your presence with the time that you're spending with your kids, and then of course financial. And so since I realized that this is such a powerful tool for change, and a lot of people aren't talking about this, and because I'm kind of geeking out on AI right now, I put together a cost of inaction calculator that walks you through a series of questions that you can ask yourself to just see, what is it costing you to stay where you're at right now? And what I want to do is I just want to walk you through that. It's completely free, just so that you can start to ask yourself these questions and make that shift in order to make whatever change you need to make. So give me a second and I'll pull that up. All right, so this is what the cost calculator looks like. And before we go through this, just be honest with yourself. There are no correct answers here. You just got to be honest, because all progress starts by telling the truth. I forget who said that, but that's always resonated with me. This is really just an assessment to see where you're at right now. So first thing that you do is you come down, type in your name, and then we start to focus on your family. So how old is your youngest kid? For me, I got a 6-month-old. I'm in it right now. And then we focus on family. How often are you physically home, but mentally somewhere else? And just be honest with yourself. Is that a couple times a week, 3 to 4 times a week? Is that every day where your wife is asking you something, you just blank out? Your kids are asking you something and like you're physically there, but like mentally not? I'm just going to fill this out as if I was based off of like what somebody is like when I start working with them at the beginning. So 3 to 4 times a week. Then we get into energy. How consistent is your workout routine right now? A lot of guys that I work with are actually former athletes, but with the business growth, with family going on, they haven't been as consistent as they want to be. Some people haven't worked out in 6 months and they just feel super drained. Just for this sake, I'll put like once a week or less. Then what you want to do here is look at, what is your current monthly revenue and what do you know that you're capable of potentially if you were dialed in mentally, if you had the right systems. And that's going to start to calculate, where you could be. So let's just assume you're around 20K a month and like you could be, at that 30K a month range. This is going to start to help you figure out financially, what does that cost look like? A lot of guys have been in business at least 5 years and planning on being in business for another 20, 25 years. A lot of guys a lot longer than that. But you can already start to see that there's a cost to being where you're at. And then when you click next, it's just going to ask you, because a lot of times I ask guys this on a call, is like, do you know what you need to be doing in order to get to the next level? And the answer is yes. They're just not as consistent with it. They don't have systems in place, or they just get thrown off because of like mental blocks or have a hard time bouncing back. And so we'll put that together. And then this is what the actual cost of inaction is in your family, your energy, and in your finances. So if you're not present a couple times a week over the span of a year, like 182, that is pretty eye-opening when you realize that there's 365 days in the year and half of the time you're physically there, but not mentally. So for me, I'm seeing this and I'm like, whoa, like that's kind of tough to swallow. And then calculating your missed workouts. I think I was only working out one time, one or less. Again, seeing how many workouts you've missed per year. It's like, dang, that's a lot. And then the financial calculation, when you look at the difference between what you're making versus what you know you can make, And then you multiply that by how many years you're going to be in business, and you add in how many years you've known that you've been at that level, 3.6 million. Like that is mathematically the cost of not implementing something that you know you can implement. And so I put this together not to make you feel bad, because that's not at all what I want, because I've been there and I work with a lot of guys who have a lot on their shoulders. They're very driven, they're very motivated, and from the outside their lives look extremely successful, but on the inside it doesn't feel like that. They beat themselves up for it. This is not like beating up on you even more, but this is just a reality to help you understand, what is it costing me to be where I'm at, and what is it going to cost me if I don't change in the future. So seeing this number should feel a little uncomfortable, but what you do with it is what is going to make the difference between if you're successful, if you use this as a tool to change, or if you use this as something to just force that spiral even deeper. Because it's even bigger than the financial side. Like for some guys, what's even more motivating is realizing how they're not as present with their kids, or how much they're not really being consistent in the gym. But I put this together to help you realize, like, the most expensive thing isn't the change that you're going to make. If it's putting a system in place, if it's hiring another employee, if it's hiring a coach to help you, the most expensive thing is inaction. The most expensive thing is doing nothing. That's like the whole point from this. And if you've made it this far, if you've calculated this, and I'll put the link in the description so that you can run through and calculate your exact numbers, then that's really what I want you to do. Go through this, put it together with your actual numbers, see what your cost of inaction is, and then ask yourself, is this really what I am okay with? Am I okay staying where I'm at? Or do I need to take that next step, make that next hire, put some systems in place, get a coach, get a personal trainer, whatever it is, shift from inaction to inaction, or from inaction to action, because that's the only way that things are going to change. And if I can help you with that at all, you can click a link here and book a call and see what we do with Driven Dadpreneur Accelerator. We've got systems, mindset tools, and one-on-one coaching to help you get to the next level. But if not, I'll see you all in the next one.